Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about the issues, both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, tonight, our topic is Iran, whatever you want to call it, okay? Recently, there have been protests against the Ayatollah, and reportedly thousands have been killed by their government. Trump has sent military equipment into the area and has threatened to strike unless they stop killing protesters. There has been grave tensions about whether or not we should go in, whether or not we should strike, and how we should strike. Tonight we're going to talk about whether or not we should do regime change in Iran, whether we should do limited targeted strikes in Iran, a whole host of options here. We've got some great guests to talk about it. I want to give the mic first to Stephanie. Stephanie, go ahead, tell people who you are, what you do, why we should listen to you, and your thoughts on the topic, and then we'll just go around. Go ahead.
Howdy, I'm Steph Fluffy, or Stephanie on here. And I'm mainly just a Twitter shit poster for the most part, but I also do debates at different times. I mainly have a minor background on the knowledge, but I should be more than prepared for the conversation. So I'm excited to hear what everybody's arguments are.
Okay, well, what's your thoughts? Should we strike or should we not?
We should definitely not strike.
Okay, thank you, and we'll get into it as we go. Bryce, what is your position?
I would say we do not strike. And so I guess my background is I have a degree in economics and philosophy. I'm starting a master's in economics in the fall, and I do a mixture of more boring kind of philosophy and political discourse coverage on my channel. Just trying to get back into it now after a couple of years.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We will get into it as we go. Gibbs, tell people who you are and all that.
All right, yeah, if you don't know, I didn't know we were going to list off all our credentials, but if we're going to do that, my undergrad was poli-sci, minor in history. I got 3 certificates from the Bush Presidential Library, which are almost equivalent to minors in modern political thought, ancient political thought, and Latin American political thought. I've also spent time over in the region in the Middle East, and I have 2 religious doctorates. So if that's what we're going to do, we can do that. And yeah, we need to attack Iran. They're a problem. I'm wearing a Crusader King on my shirt today because it's time to start the new crusade and get rid of these evil Ayatollah.
Okay, we'll definitely have some discussion tonight, I'm sure. And last, but certainly not least, Tristan, what are your thoughts, sir?
All right, I just want to say that I'm a Democrat first and foremost, but I do support Trump taking military strike action in Iran. I think that it is better than doing sanctions, and I think that it is better overall for the world, and I'm excited to see what you guys have to say about that.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to open up the floor to everyone. If you feel like you're getting talked over, if you can't understand what's being said, just get my attention. I'll make sure you get some space to speak or ask your question. With that, go ahead. Floor is open.
Okay,
I'm
I'll
curious
take
to hear. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I want to hear about the economic takes.
Well, economically, so it's interesting that you're mentioning the protester part because that's really just kind of one component. The arguments for striking Iran kind of sum up to about like three or four based on Trump's demands. The protesters are definitely relevant, but after the failure of Israel and the U.S. to kind of instigate the protests further, it's actually turned into greater support for the regime domestically. And as you can look at, like the Shah in Washington has been trying to organize a coalition and try to rally support for more protests in Iran, but that's kind of failed. So there's not really as much as the media would like you to think going on domestically against the regime.
Okay, hold on.
Mhm.
Um,
Sorry, yeah, I
whether
guess I
it
kind of
fails,
got
it's okay. I just don't want to skip over too many points. Whether it fails or succeeds, do you support the attempt?
the attempt to bomb them.
No, no, no. The attempt for the protests to overthrow their own government.
Um, yeah, so if it's like a domestic thing that they're going, yeah, I'm fine with it. Them
Okay,
domestically
so
doing it, yeah.
all right, so you can finish your point, but it sounds like you were leaning towards like calling out the failures that because Israel and America didn't like instigate the protests more, that we shouldn't do the strikes. Is that where you were heading?
No, I'd say there are a lot of reasons why I wouldn't do the strikes. I think that a lot of the promises of victory and the potentiality for the bad outcomes are all kind of predicated on a noble lie, as Strauss would call it, or like a myth. You don't necessarily have an absolute guarantee of like the victory conditions or the promises that they're saying like will happen after bombing, as we saw with the bombing last year. Like it didn't really, with regards to the bombing last year and the supposed efficacy of crippling the nuclear program, realistically, the knowledge and a lot of the resources persisted after the bombing. So the nuclear problem hasn't gone away.
How are you
So
measuring victory? What
victory,
is victory?
I'd say Trump has made four key demands, if I remember correctly. And that is that there's no nuclear enrichment, no ballistic missile programs, no funding of their gray zone activities. So I would say that checkboxing each of those three is, if not all of them, like individually, or if not all of them, considers victory.
So I disagree. I do think it's on a scale, but I think victory is anything that we can do to delay Iran from having nuclear weapons is a win. Now, I know the last strike wasn't all that great. It wasn't as great as Trump tried to have everyone believe, but anything that, because if I remember correctly, there were just a few weeks out before the strike. And now we're here, January, February, 6, 7 months later, and they're still not
Well,
there.
that's always been the case, right? Like we've been consistently engaging with like Russia and China and everybody with this idea that there's some kind of fear that we have to worry about them, and it's been a consistent thing that hasn't really been like truly wholly victorious, right? So maybe the correct course of action is something different because it doesn't seem like just engaging like kinetic strikes is going to yield you that delay, because you're just kind of kicking the ball, right? Like you're kicking the problem down to somebody else. You'll delay them, sure, but that's not really going to stop them from doing it.
Well, hold on. If we take out the leadership of the Ayatollah, for example, like it just really depends on what we're talking about with these strikes, right? If we take out the leadership of the Ayatollah, I don't see Iran balkanizing, right? Because they have a pretty solid national identity for going back thousands of years. I think though what we will see is a power struggle, right? And this is going to sound kind of callous, but I think Bush has been vindicated in the last 20 years after the Iraq War. All our enemies in the region, there's no more Saddam, went from fourth largest military, they're gone. ISIS, they were bad for a second, they've fallen apart, right? Syria's fallen apart. Hezbollah's the weakest it's ever been. Hamas, I don't know what they're doing now, but Israel's whooped their ass. I mean, I guess the Houthis are maybe the strongest they've ever been, but they're struggling. They're struggling. We're going to struggle without Iran. Iran right now has got economic problems. You mentioned those. We just took out Venezuela's leader. We pulled him out in the middle of the night. And now we control their oil, which is the backing of a petrodollar. We kind of have a tangible alliance with OPEC. Iran supplies oil to Russia. If you're pro-Ukraine, you should be pretty pro taking out Iran, taking out the oil. They also provide drone tech. That's taking out the Ayatollah. So if we're talking about what the strike looks like, I think taking out the Ayatollah or something and causing their military, the IRC, the Revolutionary Guard, to get involved and pick a backer, pick somebody, because his son doesn't meet the criteria currently to be the leader, although he's probably the most likely to take over. However, since he doesn't meet that criteria, they might pick somebody that does meet the criteria that isn't him, and that'll cause this. Or you could even see possibly a freedom, like, I don't know, caucus arise out of the people in a populist movement where they would fight back. I think it really depends on what we do, and I think maybe even causing chaos would benefit America overall in the long term.
So the problem with you made a bunch of different points that I want to respond to.
Sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
That's okay. So, and I'll get to that thing behind me in a second. The concept of like the petrodollar is going to be something that won't be as impactful because of the changes that Trump is trying to enact globally economically. They're trying to, they're intentionally weakening the US dollar. They don't want it to be a global reserve currency in order to cheapen their debt. And they're kind of trying to like turn the economy on its head by reinventing the wheel. And whether or not that's a good or bad idea is beside the point. This is going to greatly affect the whole goal of like the petrodollar and controlling the oil in Venezuela. So that's not really like the same clear victory. And based on America's history and track record, the short run seems like a good victory, maybe for one election, but in the long run, based on America's track record, it's more likely that you're going to have a lot of dissatisfied people that remember America in a bad way, much like you do in the Middle East and other parts of the like Maghreb. If you look at the Maghreb, they have an incredible consistency or resiliency of the monarchy against the attempts like by the U.S. to institute like a pro-American democratic leader. And with regards to like taking out the Ayatollahs, that's a great idea when you're spitballing around with like Trump being like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we just sent in the special forces, like the badass like Delta Force? Because you can imagine like they're like filleting like, you're such a great leader, Trump. Like, oh my God, like I love you so much. You're what's the one word that they use to describe him? Like a revolutionary. Like they use all these adjectives to like fillet him and like prop him up. And then like, wouldn't it be awesome? You can imagine Pete Hegseth being like, fuck yeah, like let's send in the special forces. But like, it's if you look at the efforts and the amount of time and amount of resources that Israel had to put in to take out Hezbollah. The Ayatollahs are not Hezbollah. There's a pretty extensive network of conservative clerics, and you're essentially saying that you don't want to just take out the like leadership and the Ayatollah inner circle. You have to take out the whole like network of conservative clerics, which means striking across the entire country.
Well, do you
this
think
is
we would have to do
incredibly
that?
difficult.
I guess I don't
You're
think we
turning them
would
into
have to do
martyrs,
that.
right? Like you have to understand the difference between like
Sure.
Venezuela and Iran is that you're dealing with a country that's predicated on a religion. Ali Khamenei wrote a book about how he thinks that he's a royal jurist meant to lead Iran into taking spreading Islam across the world in like law and government.
That's why I brought up the like credentials, right? And it said his son is like, he's being groomed, but he doesn't meet. But he doesn't have any support, and he doesn't meet the like religious credentials, right? But he would have military backing because he's got friends that are higher ups, right? So then you'll have the conservative clerics versus the son. Well, that's two groups. Then you'll have all the other groups that want stuff going on, like the Kurds. You'll have the Kurd autonomous region. All this. And I don't think it'll balkanize, but I think there will be a power struggle that'll lead them being weaker. I mean, look at the Ba'ath Party. At one point, they were controlled 3 different countries: Libya, Syria, Iraq. Now, post 20 years from after the Iraq War, Libya no longer has Ba'ath Party leadership. Syria's leadership took off, and they're
but look at the regions in and of itself.
And Iraq,
just real quick, right? Because I want to get a few things kind of straight in my mind. And this is to Stephanie and to Bryce, to your side. Is the opposition to going into Iran simply one of pragmatism, as in you think it's going to not work, it's going to be a boondoggle, it's going to be too expensive, etc.? Is that your, I guess, primary objection here? I'm just really curious. I want to hear from Stephanie first, and then Bryce. Go ahead.
Essentially, that's my main concern, is that all of our like actual military efforts are going to be like kind of wasted because they're going to perceive that in a very awful way, essentially.
Okay.
Whereas if we go about it diplomatically, it may be better.
Fair enough. What about you, Bryce? Same answer?
Well, two things. I think on one front, the stronger argument is to talk about like how it's probably not going to work the way they want it to work, both based on the like actual properties of their planning, like the operational modes and methods, but also based on the track record of America. And then the other part is that there is still some. I would expect some like ideological consistency from the Trump administration because they're all saying like make America great again. He has the Board of Peace. He's trying to manipulate to get the Nobel Peace Prize. So it seems antithetical to everything that he's been building his platform on and trying to govern as, to just say like, well, here's a problem across the world that maybe through like 6 degrees of separation or whatever is impacting the American economy, whatever, but that is nonetheless something that is contrary to a lot of the promises that he made and the way that he was platforming and the way that he's trying to govern. So I think ideologically, it's hypocritical. So I don't think that if we're going to have a kind of new order in the world where we're not intervening with each other like militarily in this way and being more peaceful, then they should not be bombing.
Okay, and this.
Yeah, I don't think that's what Trump's saying though.
And I think peace sometimes requires force, unfortunately.
And this is to Tristan and to Gibbs's side, right? If they're right in that this has very little chance of working, I guess the question would be like, how? Say it only had a 1% chance to go well, would you still support it? I mean, what's your threshold here? That's what I'm trying to find.
If we're defining well as delaying their ability to have nuclear weapons, then yes, I would support it. Gibbs can go, but I do have some
1%
issues.
Chance, only a 1% chance that any strike that we do would delay nuclear capability for a decent amount of time. You would support it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I support this on a grounds of, I think Iran having nuclear weapons is really bad. Like even if it's just used as a deterrent, I think that it will embolden their proxies.
Okay.
So I think it's a really bad thing.
Gibbs.
I also agree that nuclear weapons in Iran is maybe a worst case scenario. I don't know about a 1% chance. I don't think we would have a 1% chance. I think we have substantially higher than 1% chance. We got shit that nobody's even ever heard of. I think this is really the question on what we would want. Now, I agree actually with Steph here. If we went in there and we invaded, Iraq Boogaloo number 3, bro, I don't think that that's going to be the solution. I think that is a bad plan. I don't think that Trump is saying when he says America first that he's not going to intervene. I think he's saying he will intervene in American interests and make sure we stay in front, like he did with Venezuela. He went and did a targeted attack with our military. There's nobody can compete with us in short, quick engagements. We'll beat their ass in and out before they know what happened. Like that, we just know that's what we do good. So when it comes to Iran, I would be much more in favor of like targeted strikes. Like we take out the nuke programs, or we grab the Ayatollah or take out the Ayatollah, and then let them fall to chaos. And I know people are gonna be like, Gibbs is an asshole, and guess what? I am an asshole. But like, I'm sorry, this is an era that where Urbo is done. International rules-based order is done. It never really existed, in my opinion. And I think now people need to realize it's time to start looking out for ourselves. And sometimes you got to crack a few eggs.
I have a question for Stephanie and for Maple. I just want to be clear. You guys don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I mean, we all agree on that. We just disagree on
so
what we should do and the likelihood of it happening.
Obviously, I'm pro like the proliferation treaties, like non-proliferation treaties. So I think in general, nobody wants to see more nuclear weapons created in the world. Like that's.
So what is the negative fallback that would happen to America if we did another strike on one of their facilities, similar to what we did last summer?
If you just did this is not going to work as well as you want it to, and you're going to embolden and strengthen the regime that is like in a lot of ways repressive, it's religious, and you're going to probably see greater capacity in their gray zone activities.
So that feels like buzzwords to me, where we know
not really buzzwords. So I mean, so if you want me to like flesh it out a bit more so it doesn't sound like a buzzword,
you can, but to me, if we do nothing, that they're gonna get these weapons. You're saying that if we attack and we fail, it's going to embolden them. They're already emboldened. They already said that, hey, this is what we're working towards. This is not like Iraq where we had bad
Right.
information.
So we actually operate from a position of a lot of power and potential. Like when you look at like Trump's language when he's negotiating things, like the West has the cards, right? Like being led by America, we hold the cards.
I agree with that.
The condition that Iran is in, the kind of correct way to go about dealing with Iran is actually through that same method that they use. So Iran is like what's called like a gray zone actor. They don't really want direct conflict. They don't want to be at peace. They don't want to be at war. They want to engage in like gray zone activities where they're fighting through their proxies and they're doing a lot of covert and like back channel stuff. So we do kind of the same thing. So if you want to act on Iran, you really need to be doing a lot more within Iran to bolster support because there's really not the regime is very popular right now. America is not popular in Iran, and
so you support America doing a regime change, whether indirect or direct?
I no, because the Ayatollah is 86. You just have to. If you take the correct actions now, you can set the conditions for a later date. You have to think long, like a grand strategy.
What are the correct actions?
So the current state of Iran is pretty bad economically because of the difficulties that they have with sanctions and imports. What they've tried.
I want to input here, not to just cut you off. While it is true that they have economic like issues, what was it? I have it written here. Where'd I put it? There's a government body that does research. The Congressional Research Service, they do research for Senate members' house so they can make better decisions. They tied that the currency in Iran dropped by 50% as a direct result of the strikes. So
I just also want to piggyback off that with the you said that they're popular in Iran. Everything I've seen shows they're not popular, but they are afraid right now. So the people that are like, hey, I love the regime, it's because they were just going door to door, rounding people up. Like, I mean, obviously, if the Nazis are going door to door, or I guess the IRC is going door to door, I'm suddenly going to be like,
that's a very like Western, like as much as it's a very Western point of view. Like if you really, really research this, there was popularity for the protests initially because the currency depreciation has been an ongoing thing for decades. They've been specifically trying to deal with that currency depreciation by subsidizing imports, by giving importers rial through the central bank, and that failed and it was really corrupt. And then they tried to do it through US dollar, and that has been kind of floundering and failing. So there was a lot of upset merchants that were participating in these protests, but it was a small like merchant class and a small like student class that were participating in these protests.
But when the economy's bad, people are upset, right? Like the economy's bad.
Yeah, so that's a perfect channel of activity. Like if you look at what Obama did, if you imagine a world where you sit down with Iranians saying like, hey, like we know you're, you can perfectly see it. You literally Trump or whoever sits down and is like, hey, like we know your situation is bad. All you have to do is try to like work with us on some of these results that we want, and we'll reach a beautiful deal, a great deal, a grand deal. You can see him saying that, and you can do it through these economic channels and assisting like the central bank, assisting the merchants, and you can try to do it in a way that specifically interfaces directly with those merchants.
But that's not the only issue. There's also the drought, and this is one of the things the Taliban is talking about invading two other countries next to them, and Iran. They're even potentially talking about going to war with Iran because right now they're basically in an economic war. They're cutting off the water to Iran, and Iran's going, "Oh, we got no water," and they already have a drought. Like these are like a lot of factors.
Living standards was like but the thing is, the belief and support in the regime is entangled with their religion. Right, like a lot of these people inside the government, they're not inside the IRGC, inside the Ayatollah circle, inside of just like the conservative cleric imams. They all believe that like the Ayatollahs are divine jurists that are meant to be leading Iran through and like achieving Sharia in other countries, and Islam being the dominant legal standard and religion of the government. And there's just not the same level of support for like a secular or even like a reformist or like modernized Islam in like domestically in Iran.
But that doesn't mean that there's not factions, right? Like I just mentioned the
There's,
Taliban.
there's
Like
factions.
the Taliban is
There's Israel through one of their main think tanks identified that there's a specific like jihadi like organization that would be really optimal to try to prop them up, kind of like how they propped up opposition elsewhere. And there are factions, but the problem is that you're saying like regime change. So if you want an effective regime change, you can't just like pluck out Maduro.
I don't
It's
want an
not-
effective one. I don't want it effective. I want them to fall
Okay,
into
well,
chaos. I think
I
that
would
would be
take
the
any
best
regime
option.
change that
Right, so you
results
wanna
in
be
them
like
not
Russia.
having nuclear weapons.
You think the kind of the hybrid warfare, like asymmetric warfare that Russia engages in by like intentionally wanting like sectarian conflict and like chaos
Well,
is good.
sure, maybe, but I don't know if it's good per se. But I like on a moral scale, I think it's effective for weakening their neighbors or their enemies. And you bring up Russia, like I see Iran as part of like this evil empire that's rising against us, right? We have Russia, we have China, we had Venezuela. Who knows what's going to happen
Do
there,
you
right?
do
Cuba,
evil
like they
things
have these
against
alternative
empires?
states. And if we're taking out Iran or we make them ineffective where they fall to chaos, they're not going to have drone technology. They're not going to be able to produce nukes. There maybe we get a regime that's favorable to us, maybe we don't, but they're going to be weaker than the one that came before. So it's like I'm like maybe as a good, maybe not morally good, but as effective and good for like America. Yeah, I think it would be good that like let them go to chaos.
Right. So the difference here is that I could agree that we can steer Iran away from that like religious crusading kind of country that they are, and instead try to engage them on more like reformist levels and economic means. Because
Do you
what
think
I'm
we can
hearing,
do that
Go ahead.
what
before
I'm
they
hearing is
develop
that
a nuke?
but what I'm hearing is that let's grant so we can agree that like so let's say Iran is this evil empire or part of an evil empire or part of an axis of evil, whatever. So they're bad. We've identified that they're just like objectively bad. Like that's not like something subjective that people disagree on. We're all in consensus that they're bad. And now you're saying that you don't know if the activity of like the asymmetric warfare in this particular way of like destabilizing the region and creating like sectarian conflict and chaos and so on, you don't know if that's necessarily good, which in a lot of ways is fair to say that that itself is bad. So you're wanting to engage in immoral things to achieve your ends against an enemy that you're just perceiving evil. So like it doesn't really add up, and it doesn't really seem in line with like Western values and ideas. And I think a lot of foreign policy in the West is either like constructivist or like liberal. Like whether or not you like it or not, or sorry, whether you like it or not, you are liberal in some respects because you are a product of the liberal system. You're a product of the liberal like West, and there are going to be values that you hold that are liberal. So you are kind of being a little like hypocritical in that sense.
I think you're being hypocritical. I think you're talking to me, but I think you're being a little
No,
hypocritical too here. And I want you to clear this up.
sure.
You gave me the impression that you would be okay with drone strikes if it had a high success rate. So
That
we're
wasn't me.
talking.
That wasn't. I didn't necessarily say that. I think it was.
Sure. Then can you clarify for it? Is
Sure.
that something you agree or disagree with?
Yeah, well,
Um,
I'll just ask you directly. Say we had a 100% chance of drone striking the Ayatollah and getting regime change that would lead to a path where they did not, they did never gained nuclear weapons. Would you be opposed?
Yeah, I don't think that we should intervene in that same way. I think the track record in the last 60 years has shown that this gives you short-term gains and wins, but it doesn't actually realize your long-term grand strategy. So I don't think that's
I guess
effective, and I
the
think
question I
ideologically is
have
bad.
then is what
What?
do you think is the best grand long-term strategy when it comes to Iran?
So I think it's going to tap into some of the like more technical jargon from this is actually a
Can you
term
just
that's
give it
created
to
by the
us
U.S.
like in normal people
Let me
talk?
I'll try. Okay, yeah. So there are ways of engaging activities abroad that are covert and, in some respect, destabilizing without causing sectarian conflict and chaos. They can do things to kind of influence and meddle in those regions without resulting in like the potential like death and destruction that we see on the other levels. And we also know that by creating the conditions, I guess like maybe exacerbating the conditions, it's kind of like a sneaky negotiating table tactic to make them sit down and talk about what can we do to achieve an outcome. Because I think the smart, well, how do they call it? The smart power method of like Obama was on the right track. I think that you want to do something where they're at the negotiating table.
Okay, let me ask
I
before you guys get in, and I want to let Tristan press a little bit if he wishes, but I want to get
Hmm.
Stephanie's opinion as well. Same question: if we had 100% known chance these drone strikes would work, and they would they would depose the regime and keep the new regime from getting nuclear weapons for a couple years at least, right? Would you be okay with the drone strikes then, or to the military strikes then?
No, it's smarter to effectuate change through like actions that don't require murder,
Okay,
if we
so
can help it.
can you give us then what you think that the U.S. should do if, as you said, you don't want Iran to get nukes? What method or strategy should the U.S. be pursuing now in Iran to prevent that from happening, if not military strikes?
Some kind of diplomatic like regime change that involves like peaceful understandings between two countries instead of just bombing, because they're going to get more resentful over that if we do that.
Okay, go ahead, Tristan, and then Gibbs.
Okay. I don't mind having a conversation about long-term actions that we should take. We are currently not in the in the spot to be waiting for long-term action. So I agree with you guys that we should continue diplomacy. But like I don't think we have time for that to work.
Why?
Like so I don't know what the current standing is, but when we bombed them last, they were weeks away from reaching the
They've been
98%.
okay. The thing is, I kind of expected that's where you were coming from, but we don't
Mhm.
really know that for sure. That's a
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
speculative
whoa.
guess.
Why do you we had independent international observers through the previous treaty that not treaty but the agreement we had with them that would go and look at what they have. We also have like when we did attack them, they admitted they didn't admit their enrichment levels, but they admitted the equipment that they had, which is for enriching, was destroyed. So yeah, like there is a level of speculation there, but there are like actual reports that we're basing this off of. It's not like Iraq where we just had one guy say something, we believe them, and we were wrong. So like,
Right, but
so
enriched
all right,
uranium
so
is not only used for weapons.
sure. So here's a better question. Why are you so sure that they will not develop a nuclear weapon in the time it would take to find a diplomatic solution?
It has nothing to do with that. It's more just looking at it through like the rational actor lens, like the kind of standard American foreign policy lens. That I believe that Iran, even though you're dealing with like a religious body that have everything that I've listed previously, you are still going to have on some level a rational actor in the sense that they have water issues, as was brought up, standard of living issues. They have currency issues. So importing is a massive, massive issue for them right now. There are students that are constantly protesting all the time. So we can go to them and be like, hey, we know your situation's bad. You say, like, I'm gonna post out like more of like a hyperbolic example, but you say we'll bring in Amazon and like SpaceX and whoever else from Trump's buddy list will want to do that and be like, we're gonna lift sanctions, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and because like I'm gonna expect that they're gonna act as a rational actor, because if you give them a bunch of help and assistance in ways that they're super deficient right now, then their population that are kind of down the middle, they're not really sure, but for the most part support the regime, they're going to look at the regime and be like, what the fuck, bro? Like they just came to us with like trillions of dollars worth of investment and development and stuff like that, and you're turning it down, turning away. Granted, there's a ton of distrust towards America. I do acknowledge that, but like they're going to act
I,
rational.
I,
Uh,
Ye
There's
go
so
ahead.
much I want to say,
Let
but hold
let
on.
let Tristan and then Gibbs. Tristan
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Gibbs.
yeah. Yeah, I'll wait. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
want to push back on Stephanie too. It seems that your main issue here is with the death that would happen if we did a strike. Is that like kind of accurate?
Well, I just don't think like if we do strike that it's going to be like a very clean strike, because I remember like even last time the administration said they did a strike, they said they got all of it, but Iran said that they still had at least like 80% capacity, if I'm remembering correctly. I could be remembering
Okay.
incorrectly, but
So you're both on the efficiency train. All right. So back to Maple. Damn, I forgot. Gibbs, you can go. I forgot what point I was going to make.
Yeah, so I want to go back to Wick's first question to answer the second question. If it was a 1% chance that we wouldn't achieve our goals, whatever they are, then no, I would not be in favor of that. Like, I want effective, but I think our chances are much higher. I don't know if I was being obtuse. I didn't answer that earlier. I wasn't trying to be. But as for the grand strategy, this is why I keep saying, in hindsight, Bush is vindicated, right? We looked at the Ba'ath Party. I want to come back to the Ba'ath Party because this is like key to understanding what's happening now in the Mideast. The Ba'ath Party, right? They were basically control three countries: Libya, Iraq, Iran. That's why they have the 3-star. Not Iran. Syria. I'm sorry. Libya, Syria, and Iraq. And they had the 3 stars on there. They were talking about maybe eventually forming three solid country between the three. Libya was talking about having its own African currency that was backed, and all this other stuff, economic power. Iraq had oil and a strong military. Syria, doing Syria things. And so we basically eliminated them. And then what happened? The Ba'ath Party, the ones that were left, teamed up with the religious radicals and became ISIS and took over parts of Syria. Now, ISIS was bad, but they're not the same threat as 3 countries basically forming a super country or whatever to like be a threat. Iran, this is why the balkanization thing comes up, I think, is a question, is they have all these different like factions. Maybe the Kurds carve out a small section, maybe the Taliban takes over a small section, but overall they're gonna have the same core. They like have a very strong national identity. And so when we sit here and talk about grand strategy, I think it behooves us to cause some chaos in the region and take out the leadership, or maybe their nuclear programs or some other things, weaken their military before we take out leadership. Because I think that what will happen is we'll have the secular groups that are like, hey, we want women's rights, we want all these things, we see what other countries have, we want those too. It'll strengthen our allies, which is OPEC basically. I guess they're our ally, but tangibly our allies. And then Israel, because Iran's their great enemy. They're same thing with Iran, though. If we take out their leadership, all the little proxy gray actor countries, little peak groups, Hezbollah, all these, they'll be dramatically weaker and may even fall. Hezbollah's the least popular it's ever been. Hamas is basically done. I guess the only one that's affected is the Houthis. This will hurt Russia. So if you're pro-Ukraine, you should be pro this. I just don't see the net negatives, and we could do very little, and it would be very helpful to us. Now, I agree that murder sounds bad, right? But if you're effective and you just take out the leadership, I think we can all agree the leadership is evil. And even if they have a religious gathering, they put somebody new in charge, that guy's going to be weaker and have less support now than the Ayatollah. And I think that helps us. And I think it's easy to achieve our things. And our grand design should be keep that region weak while we strengthen up over here.
I'm going to respond
the
to
easiest way to
Go ahead,
sorry.
Stephanie, please.
Yep.
I think the easiest way to like actually effectuate change there is to get the people on our side first. Like if we want them to install somebody that we like, it would be best to get them on our side, at least like culturally.
My pushback here would be that I think the strike did a little bit of that. Yes, they had their own issues, but there's a direct tie to the collapse of their currency as a result of the strike, which led to the protests that we're seeing. And from what I can tell, it was a pretty organic protest. Like, here's a good question. I assume everyone here supports the protests that have been happening, right? No, is that yes? Some confirmations? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So
use your words, gang. Use your words. But go ahead.
The protests, even if you want to consider indirect, was indirectly linked to these strikes. Like, are we all acknowledging that?
No, that's definitely not true. The currency situation has been basically a bleed that's been happening for decades.
So it has been a bleed, but the 50% drop happened during the 12-day war. Like, you're not willing to associate that drop with the war.
Right, but it's not trying to say that it's specifically caused by there's a causality there. It's more like there's a correlation between the bombs dropping and it happening at the same time while this bleeding happens. So the idea that there will necessarily be a 50% drop if you again drop bombs, I can't buy into that.
So I'm not speculating into the future. I'm just saying we drop bombs, currency collapsed more than the average collapse that it had seen before, and people protested as a result. Like I'm just analyzing cause and effect, right? I'm not trying to say that if we do this again, this is the result that will happen. I'm just trying to see if you guys will acknowledge that there is a percentage of um, causality that you can attribute to the strike on the devaluing of the currency. Like what
A
percentage would you guys
percentage,
give?
probably like 25,
Okay.
25%.
So do you guys think that this round of protests would have happened without the strike?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. I disagree, but that's
Well,
Somewhere
to
along the
Tristan,
line.
then, to Tristan, I have a question for you. This isn't the first time we've seen protests against the Ayatollah by the people of Iran. Previously, during the Biden administration, there was huge amounts of protests that erupted against the Ayatollah and their moral police, right? Because of the beating to death of a woman in jail, right? So I don't know if you can say that the protests would not happen without
Well,
our intervention because they have
I know.
happened before without our intervention. Like
Well,
that's
I'm
Wick,
not.
definitely
this is
something that
actually,
has
I know
happened.
that you asked Tristan this, and I'll turn it over to him real quick, but that's evidence of kind of what I'm saying with our long term goal, right? Like we have multiple presidents, like Bush turned over to Obama, and then Obama did stuff in the region, whether we like the drone strikes or not, right? You know, we've seen this as a long term goal of the US to destabilize the region. Now, people argue that makes them mad at us, but I think it strengthens us. I think that, like, maybe any of these protests, all right, let's just be honest. I think these protests, even back then, were mostly organic. However, we know deep down the CIA is probably funneling some shit in there, right? Probably at some degree because it weakens them. And so, like, when you're just talking about this week, I think you're giving evidence to what I'm talking about, which is this long-term strategy of destabilizing them. And I think that's important to like factor in here. We can't just look at it as an isolated issue where it's like, oh, yes, they did this, and then this causality happens. Because I agree with Tristan. I think that exactly is what happened. We bombed, currency changed, right? But I think it's also part of the long-term goal. It's just like one effective win in a long chain of events. I'm sorry, but go ahead, Tristan. It
So
was
I
good.
think that I don't really like your question, but I'm going to answer it. Um, when something happens, there's usually something that makes it happen, right? And you're pointing to something that happened where I wasn't in politics much back then,
Sure.
where you're saying someone was beaten.
The
They
inciting
didn't really
event
like
was a
that,
woman didn't wear her
right?
hijab or her covering right,
Hmm.
and she was taken into custody by the moral police, which they have there, which enforces women have to wear their hair covered
Yep.
and other dress codes and things like that. She was beaten to death by the police, and this
Okay, so my
sparked
argument
a huge
isn't
round
that
of protests. The government executed a bunch of protesters, right? Thousands. It was a whole thing, right?
okay. So my argument isn't that there wouldn't be any protests, right? There could always be a protest. My argument is that in this specific instance, with a lot of other attributing factors, the strike did play a role in the chain of things that happened, right? So I'm just
Fair enough.
acknowledging that. I'm not saying it's going to happen in the future. I'm not saying they're not going to have protests for different reasons in the future. I am saying that something that America did contributed to the protest. That's all I'm saying. And I feel like
But I
that's
guess the question I would have back for you is
mhm.
fair enough, but those protests have failed, right? And so at what point do we have to acknowledge that the protesters rising up isn't going to be a real factor here? That
Okay.
if we are going to overthrow the regime, it has to be mostly us, if not
So
entirely us.
I don't want that to happen, but I'm not opposed to it happening, and I'm curious to whether the people who are against the strikes want that to happen. Like with the strikes not working, and we've had sanctions not working. What is the next step?
The next step
What
is, sorry, I also don't want to cut off in case Steph had a response, but
Yeah.
okay. The problem is that you have to look at the whole logistics situation for the U.S. as well. Let's say you try this bombing campaign, and maybe to some extent it works. Maybe it delays them a few months or whatever. But the specific cost of that is that right now Iran has one of your bunker buster bombs and one of your other ballistic missiles. So they're no doubt, like, they have some very intelligent scientists. They have some very intelligent arms manufacturers there. So they're going to be working on new missiles and new bombs. And they have a lot of production capacity, as we saw in their response to the 2025 bombing. So the reality is that the U.S. used like 25% of your THAAD interceptors after 12 days. So you have maybe enough THAAD interceptors for like 1 to 2 months of bombing Iran. And there's probably a pretty significant chance that in like 1 to 2 months, you can't fully dismantle the IRGC and their other like paramilitary arms and stuff. So unless you have a plan to achieve everything, complete collapse of the Ayatollah regime and something to replace it within those 2 months, you're going to create a situation that's going to be horrible for Israel. And within 1 to 2 months, they're going to be out of capacity to defend against like rockets from everybody. So it seems like it's kind of short-sighted. There was another point I wanted to respond to, but like especially with regards to like the American involvement, it's like I said, this all seems like great short-term gains, but in the long run and the big picture, you are opening the region up, and especially Israel and other like areas, to a lot of bad shit. And if you want to look at American history, you can see a ton of situations where America went in. Like, wasn't the new Iraq guy somebody that Trump didn't like? So clearly, there's no perfect way to have a pro-American regime change because they don't like you. Their trust in America is low in the Middle East. For the most part, like the only reason why people like you is because you give them a lot of money and like a lot of business. So why not play into that whole like money aspect? Why would you just try to continue using force in some like cringe, like Pete Hegseth kind of way?
So it's difficult for you and I to like have any kind of agreement or disagreement because we fundamentally disagree on the timeline in which these nukes would be developed. So you believe you have a long enough runway for what you believe needs to happen to actually happen, and I disagree that we have that amount of time. So I'm not even sure how to interact with you right now.
But to your point, to his point, we have had kids build like nuclear reactors in their like house before, right? Like it's not like the actual site. Yeah, we have. Yeah, we've had a kid build a reactor in like this was a few times. I think this
A
happened now.
nuclear reactor in their house.
Yeah,
Child.
yeah. Look, I'll find it in a
Small
second.
scale.
This is yeah, it was for like a small scale.
Okay.
It was like for a science project thing. I'll find it. There's some pretty crazy stories.
Using fissile material or just a steam generator, basically. Because that's what
He had a bunch of nuclear material.
Well, one of the examples they actually irradiated like the whole building and it had to be like condemned.
Well,
so I mean, I don't know. I'll find it. It was for some science project and the kid wasn't.
I just never heard of this, but fair enough.
Yeah, I'll find it for you. It's not important. Super important to my point. My point is the science behind this is not. It's not the science that's the barrier. It's actually what you just brought up, Wick. Right now is the like materials. Is gathering enough materials to like be a problem. Right. That's the issue with the nuke.
Just real quick on that note, because Tristan said, and I want to interrogate him on this. I just want to ask a question. You say we don't have a very long runway. What do you think is the timeline here? That if we don't do anything, if we do nothing, if we just sit on our hands, okay, how long before Iran gets a nuclear weapon, or enough to make even just a local nuclear kind of suitcase bomb type thing?
I guess without sources, I would say less than a year.
Less than a year. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we agree? Like Bryce?
How about everyone say what time frame they believe it would be?
I'm just really
how about
curious. That? What about you? Let's start Gibbs. Gibbs, how long do you think? We do nothing.
I like a nuke. You know, I don't know, maybe a year, 2 years, but like a dirty bomb tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
You still have to
think that they have enough now to do it?
Yeah, well, because I think they have nuclear like fiscal materials they could use and like set with explosion and blow up and be a dirty bomb. I don't know if they have enough to be like a true blow nuke yet, because after we bomb them. But like, yeah, I think a dirty bomb, they probably have the materials to do that tomorrow.
What do you think, Bryce? How long do you think they have before they get enough fissile material to make something that's an actual threat to their neighbors?
I think it's hard to say a specific time. I think So the thing is that you're working with a lot of kind of variables at play. If we have a situation where they get completely left alone, sanctions lifted, no diplomatic efforts, everything just if you exit interaction
No,
with
it's
them
just
entirely.
we do nothing. That means we don't help, we don't hurt. We just keep it as is, status quo, as it is today. How long before they get it?
Um,
And I
yeah,
understand that you can't
probably
give us a
a year.
precise answer.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I agree with
Guess.
that. Probably like a year.
Like a year. Okay. What about you, Stephanie?
Year and a half, 2 years tops.
Well,
But
then we don't really disagree on the runway time.
I don't think they'd ever use a nuke, especially against us and our mutually assured destruction. Like, I do not believe it would ever be.
You don't.
reason
so
why
you,
I
hold
asked
on.
against
Let
Israel-
me ask this, Gibbs. Do you think they'd ever use a nuke?
Against us?
No,
Maybe.
against
Israel,
anyone
yes.
in their region.
Oh yeah, anyone?
Really.
Yeah, somebody. Absolutely, they would use it. I mean, it's Iran. Like
I'm
they might even
prepared to
sell it.
argue that point.
Given
I like
Israel's Samson doctrine, do you think they would attack us for not defending them?
Would Israel
Repeat
attack
that?
us?
Right, because they have the Samson plan where they just attack everybody who never helped them, all their allies, and
Well, Israel did put out something interesting saying they want to like wean themselves off our military support over the next 10 years. I mean, no, they have attacked us in the past with the USS Cole or whatever. Or whatever the little boat was. I mean, but like, I don't know. I don't think Israel would attack us if Iran set off a bomb in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or something. I think that they would be like, oh, now it's ass whipping's time. And then they would take out Iran and we would probably immediately jump on board with them, right? Like if a nuke goes off and it's anybody but us, you know, we're gonna be not happy about it. I would think.
So, I don't care to talk about. Okay, personally, I'm going to interject and say I think that there's less of a concern with whether or not they would use it, like speculating as to the percentage of chance that they'll actually use it. I think the necessity of looking at a timeline in an utter vacuum is why the timeline doesn't necessarily matter here, because you have senior leadership in the IRGC and in like the conservative cleric that are saying, we're going to get bombed by the US. We need a nuke in order to be a deterrent. And if you instead consider the approach of going to Iran, being like, hey, we have a bunch of, we're like the financial backbone of the entire world. We have the leading expertise in fintech. We have trillions of dollars that we can throw at this problem. Why don't we try to figure something out? You immediately kneecap that same perception of this being like an existential crisis for Iran.
all right. So how does that play into your belief system that their government is religious based? Like what you're I feel like you're approaching it from an American brain, which is fair. But like if their government is really religious based, like why would they go for that?
So the realistic interpretation would be they would ideally come to the realization that you don't necessarily have to follow the American model of bringing democracy to the world through bombs, right? Like they can probably realize that because their goal is not as much as the Ayatollah in his book wrote about how he thinks that he's a divine leader meant to bring Islam everywhere. They just want to be a regional power. So if you enable them to be a regional power through like economic means and you push them away from conflict, which is possible outside of the conflict with Israel, it's very, very possible for them to try to like refocus a lot of their time and energy away from, because the main goal is to turn them away from being such a gray zone actor as they are.
Yeah, but
Before
like,
you
I don't want
respond,
to.
$5 from Testicle Johnson to say Iran has been 6 months away from a nuke for the last 20 years. Thank you.
I like really got to protest this like depiction of them like only wanting to fight Israel. You know, they're like Shia. She's a Shia prophet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know who's not a Shia prophet? You know, I don't know, whatever king, whatever his name is in Saudi Arabia or any of the secular or like other Muslim, countries in that region. Most of them are Sunni, right? You know, we even have talks right now that Damascus might like sign the Abraham Accords. Would be a coup of epic proportions if Syria's new leadership, even if they used to be terrorists or still are terrorists, sign the Abraham Accords. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I just saw that they were talking about doing it today. And it's just like, we're seeing this like play out over and over, is if we take them out, maybe it'll cause China and Russia to spend more money on propping up somebody, but that in turn weakens them. That's more money they have to spend over there, right? You keep talking about making them a regional power. Well, I got to ask you, what's to stop them from taking our money and then as soon as they're ready, slapping us with the other hand? These people, you talk about them being like rational actors. They are rational actors, but they're also religious, as just as Mr. Thomas brought up here. It's kind of crazy that you're going to say, oh yeah, he believes he's this thing, and he knows probably as a rational actor, I don't have the power to do this all today. But I do have the power to like, hey, let's just do this in secret. Let's get a like agreement going, which is what they always done. They like agree with something and then they do it stuff under the table. Like I don't see how you have any evidence they'll change.
Different. Literally, that's an assumption built
Well,
into
the difference is that we're the superpower and they're not. We could stop them from doing that other shit.
I mean,
if we like take out the IRC,
middle powers and small powers are still gonna engage. Like, if they can.
Hold on, part of the reason the protest didn't work is because they got squashed. If we go and take out the Ayatollah, we take out some senior leadership of the IRC.
If we like, it's not some simple thing. They already have.
We can take out leadership.
You can take out leadership, but as you've seen in like other areas where you're dealing with like these like devout religious groups, there's going to be somebody to take their place like quickly. Like
yeah, and then they fight each other. Like for example, Boko Haram teamed up with ISIS. Now Boko Haram's back on their own again. They're no longer with it. You had original parts. We have ISIS Nusra. We have ISIS K. We have ISIS 57. We have a million different versions of ISIS because we took out the leadership. And what they do? They fractured. If you take out enough of the leadership and the Ayatollah, you're going to have all these guys like, oh, I'm a local base commander in, I don't know, the mountains of Iran. Why would I want to team up with, oh, this local base commander in the south of Iran when I'm in the north, or whatever? Like, you're going to want to build your own power structure. I'm not going to say it's going to balkanize because they'll make alliances and have a strong national identity, but you're going to see them back different groups.
Do you care about the Iranian people at all?
No, I don't give a shit. I care about American people. Like, it sounds bad, but like the best Iranian is if they have freedom under America, if we conquer them. But I don't want to waste all our troops because we're not ready to do that.
Right. So why are you putting American troops? Because they have like new anti-air capabilities now, right?
Yeah, that worked real good for Venezuela, didn't it?
They have way different capabilities than Venezuela.
Yeah, and Iraq at the time back in the day was the fourth strongest.
Why are you going to further deplete? Do you not think that it put it? So you're worried about America? Let's go back to the whole like logistical aspect of this.
Let's say we lose some planes. How many people fly an F-35? What, one, maybe two if you have a specialized version.
When is it okay for an American?
Yeah, what's the ratio? If we lose 50 people, we fucking cause them to be gone as a power in the region. That's a pretty good trade-off.
Sure. So what about when China and Russia look at you and you've just depleted your assets? Because after giving so much to Ukraine, you've already you've depleted your bombs and missiles immensely, even more so. And now after Iran responds with all their missiles, you've depleted your THAAD interceptors.
We just dropped like almost all the amount of bombs on the Houthis that they dropped in World War II. Right, like we have an amazing ability to make bombs. Like not only that, America needs production. We already need manufacturing. That's a whole cornerstone of his economy. If we boost up the military-industrial complex more,
in reality, it's not.
That is reality.
No, it's not. It's not.
Wait. So we didn't just do that.
Okay, well, hold on. You guys are talking over each other. Bryce, make your point, but then I want to get Tristan in here as well, and then I want to get Stephanie as well. So go ahead.
Sure. I guess the short of it is that America has a finite amount of resources. If they continue to deplete things immensely like they have, that's going to expose them to Russia and China taking advantage of that.
Tristan, go ahead.
Okay, am I up? I don't have a point to make against that specific line. I do have a question. Do you think that currently Iran is more invested into their economy than they are into their military?
No.
Sorry. Go ahead, Steph. I saw you talk.
No, I was just responding. No, I don't.
Oh, what about you? I do have a question for Stephanie, but Maple, what about you?
Are they? I mean, it's kind of a question of the same. So I guess your question is more or less like, is their expenditure favoring their economy, or is their expenditure favoring the military? Is that? I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, so I'd rather.
I don't know the numbers either. But do you think they're trying to solve that water issue? Do you think they're trying? So the sanctions that they have on their country right now has lowered the lifespan of all of their citizens by 5 years. Do you think they're trying to do something to fix that? Or do you think they should be spending money to fix that instead of their nuclear program, instead of funding the Houthis and all
absolutely.
of their proxy?
It's one of the avenues that I think Trump could sit down with his board of peace and like everybody that's like like send Tony Blair over there to sit down and be like, hey, you got a water problem. We're fucking great at water, like in the same like kind of Trump way, and
Why would
promise to
someone
build.
who is not focused on that see that as leverage? Like
Why
you're
would
saying that, hey, we can go to them and give these economic reasons why you should partner with us, but we're already seeing that their priorities don't line up with economics. You already admitted that
to
they.
piggyback on that point a little bit, over the years, Iran has tried to assassinate U.S. citizens on U.S. soil, and there are other enemies that weren't U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. Do you think that they would stop, or do you think that they're planning to stop doing that, or should they not pay a price for doing that?
I think when you
Like they have, like to be clear,
would they
Iran
stop and would they pay a
Iran
price
says
for it?
that we're their great Satan. We are their enemy, right? They treat us like their enemy. We are
Mhm.
we are the like I said, the great Satan.
Yeah.
Why do you think that they'll be our friend?
Because I think that my country, Canada, has shown that you can forge relations with somebody that is an ideological difference and do it successfully. And
Okay, but this
Christian
isn't just
Freeland,
an ideological difference. This is we hate you and are dedicated to destroying you.
right? And you could say the same thing about the other side of the coin, right? Like there's a belief about people like hating Iran and Islam and like Israelis hating Iran. They're extremely influential in the American lobbying. So do I think that they would stop? I think with correct negotiating and promises and like honest, like everything's on the table, and do it through a purely American lens. Be like, look, we're going to make money from this. We are going to win. We're like the Americans are going to win in this situation, but you're also going to win. Like it's going to be like packaged in a way in the Trump, like the true like American way that everybody wins. And would they stop? Yeah, eventually. The thing is that a lot of shit's been done to them, and do they need to pay a price for like the attempts and all that? I think that just begets more violence. If you're talking about like
I
some
think
kind
you're
of
cool for believing that, a little altruistic, but they produce a lot of oil. If they wanted to be rich, they would be rich, right? If we just dropped our sanctions on them, if they stopped the nuclear program, we dropped our sanctions on them, and they just sold their oil, they'd be rich. That's not a priority for them.
yeah, but look
quick-
at before the prior intervention, like they were not a problem. Why is Iran a problem before sorry, after like
because
the like
they're allies with all the people, the one that hate us. So, secondly, also calling them altruistic and a Canadian. Half the Geneva Convention is written because of the Canadians. I'm just saying, maybe watch out for them. But I mean, when we're sitting here talking about this kind of thing, they were a problem. They're funding the Houthis, they're funding Hamas, they're funding Hezbollah. They're actively pushing these people to like be involved in Syria. They were a problem. They're like not as big of a problem as say if like I don't know their counterweight at the time, which was the other like secular or borderline secular group, the Ba'ath Party, back in the day, had taken over those three countries and like or maintained control and then became a superpower. We were allied with Israel, and then we allied with Saudi Arabia and OPEC, right? Oh God! And
Hold
so
on.
when I'm sitting here saying,
Yeah, I'm
like
sorry.
saying this,
I'm just really sorry. I just had to make sure it was Hezbollah. Yes, it was Hezbollah. Hezbollah has direct ties to Iran. They're an Iranian proxy group. Like
yeah,
back in 1983, they killed hundreds of U.S. Marines. Like this is
right.
I
I
just don't
agree. I agree. We should have
understand.
done more. We should have done more then, and then we wouldn't have the problem today. But when we're sitting here talking about since Bush, which is kind of what I've been talking about the last 30-year plan, I see that what we've been doing is we've chose our allies, which is Israel and it's the Saudi Arabian backed coalition, right? And we've chosen those two groups. We got rid of the Baathists. And then, now we have the religious nut jobs, right? And now, okay, cool. So we got the religious people of all the different varieties. And then we have like Iran, which is the only one that's kind of whatever. And they teamed up with Russia and China. Like we could make this a money pit for Russia and China. I just don't see why we're not doing this already. Like it's our whole goal is to strengthen our people and us and weaken the adversarial powers. And making them a regional power goes towards this multipolarity thing. And I understand why if he's a Canadian, then he would like that. Having America a little weaker, that's good for all these other countries. Having America stronger keeps us to have single polarity power.
You need to make up your mind because the Trump administration wants to have this like Western stronghold. They want to like if you look at everything that he's been doing, he wants Greenland, he wants the Arctic, he wants a ton of shit with like Central America and South America. So he wants like a fortress here. So why are you hyperextending your resources into the Middle East when you could be?
It's not hyperextending. Look at what he did with Venezuela. He didn't invade Venezuela yet.
I don't know,
but it was a surgical strike.
Okay. The thing is that there's just some logistical realities that if America bombs, if they get into like a real bombing campaign in Iran to achieve some kind of goals, like the three things that Trump really, really wants, then they're going to commit a shit ton of resources. And I know you have a really optimistic view of American arms production, but it's not on the level that if you use as much.
I don't think you understand our logistic ability. We take literal Burger Kings and have them installed in bases in like 24 hours. Like our logistics are like the best thing that's ever happened in military history compared to any other nation in history. Right? It is great. It's pretty amazing.
So
and it's only
I think. Look, there's simply a matter of math, right? So you had a 12-day.
Yeah, 11 super carriers. Say it with me. 11. 11. There's 11 of them. We just post one across the thing. That's the only logistics we need to bomb the shit out of them.
Thing is, okay. Really simple math. 12 days depleted you 25%. Do you think in those 12 days that you were able to rebuild that 25%?
No, but I think we have other shit. Like, guess what? B-52s. We can send them in there with cluster bombs. We should have about 1 billion of them. Like, so, I mean, yeah, I know this is your point.
We use 25%
of you
against the.
It does.
They are against it, but guess what? There's 3 countries that use them officially. It's us, North Korea, and Israel.
One at a time. Also, $5 from Audacity. Let's make a little money. $5 from Audacity. Really easy to take the ideological route when your neighbor is the USA. Thank you for the $5. Finish up, Gibbs. I want to hear from I want to give.
Yeah, real quick. You keep talking about the THAADs, the 25% THAAD. Bro, this is why I brought up the cluster bombs. Yeah, it's against the rules of some countries. We didn't sign that treaty. We still use them. But here's the thing: is we have tons and tons of other munition. We used one specialized thing, and then we flew our great Dorito in and dropped some bombs on them. Not even our best new shit. We used some of the old shit. Same thing with Russia and all that. The Bradleys are beating up their newest tanks. This is like something we're retiring. Like our B tier, C tier shit takes out their A tier shit. So like we're not wasting our good shit. And if we are using this, we need to ramp up production. That's why Javelin missiles, we were had way behind. And I think we're still slightly behind, but we're selling more and producing more for the first time in ages at record numbers. So yeah, I think when it comes to production, America wants to build up production. This is great news for us.
Sorry, I really need to interrupt you. So you depleted 25%. How long? Give me some spitball, like because the interceptors are really important. When you say 25%,
what do you mean? Can you 25%?
Like overall capacity, like the total number of THAAD interceptor missiles or the anti-missile things that are protecting Israel and America. So the overall stockpile that America has was used up in 25% was used up in 12 days to protect Israel.
Sure,
sounds like an Israeli problem. I'm joking.
Yeah, so, I mean, and not only that, we're building new ones already.
Okay, but wait, I have a question for you.
Coming out.
Yeah. So you're building new ones. So just understand, for America's defense and safety and capability, you agree that interceptors are really important, right? Because they're really good, they're effective. Yeah.
I think they're currently one of our more useful tools. Sure.
Yeah. So you don't comparable to the interceptors. There's not really anything else that defends you against something like the Iranian missile barrages that are capable.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: Who could do that to us?
Iran.
No, they can't. They can't
hold on.
Mexico and Canada.
This is still.
No, this is important. This is important
I understand, but let Bryce finish, and then you can correct him.
Okay.
Well, sure.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get at, because I don't want you to try to like weasel out or worm out of it, is that there is a significant dependence and importance of THAADs, right? Like they're critical to the American strategy of defense, and based on recent reports, you guys will not have new THAAD interceptors built until 2027.
Yeah, but you're confusing something, right? And this
I'm
is
not
this
gonna-
is why I
I'm
brought
not
up who could do this to us. Well, you live in Canada, so you know one of our borders. All right, Mexico's the other border. Now, unless you're saying the cartels or something going to get in cahoots with Iran or Cuba, and they're going to be able to launch 1,000,000 drones and 1,000,000 cruise missiles at us from like right across our border, Iran can't do fucking diddly squat.
on.
Because if you look at what the Houthis did,
Gibbs.
hold on, Wick, before you go. No, let me finish because I know you already want to object. If we look at what the Houthis did, which is similar to what the Iranians did, what did we do? We used our ships. We mowed them down with our fucking little minigun thing up there on the top of them. We mowed them down in droves. We've used other stuff. We don't need the THAAD missiles to defend against Russia, right? We could, but we don't need them in the same way Israel needed them against Iran. This is a false dichotomy
But
that you're trying to
Gibbs,
set
hold
up.
on, Gibbs. You understand that Iran's proxies and other proxies of other
Sure.
countries and other terror groups, they
Uh-huh.
strike at Americans every day, not
Yeah.
on our
Where are they
soil,
located?
but on our
Oh,
military
well, that's the
bases
key
that
part
we
here.
have abroad. Our soldiers, our equipment, our military personnel, our logistics systems, all these things suffer continuous little probing attacks almost every day by someone in that region. Now, this goes against both of your points, to be clear, right? It goes against Bryce and Stephanie's point
No,
that
it
we
doesn't.
can
It
just
proves my
negotiate
point.
and it will
You're
be
proving
fine
my
and
point
we'll all
right
be
now.
roses and goodness. It also goes against your point, though, that they can't touch us. They absolutely
They can't.
can, and they do,
No,
and they try.
They don't. They don't. They try, and they're very ineffective. Right? Every single time they try. Let's look at Syria. You remember when Russia tried to do it with the Wagner group? They got mowed down in the thousands. Remember when old General Salami? What happened after they tried to do that? We turned him into Salami. Right? Like every single time we're getting told, oh, they're attacking us. Oh, Iran attacked one of our U.S. military bases. What do? We cruise missiled the site where they launched it from and blew it to Kingdom Come. You know, like every time y'all tell me this, I like laugh. Or the amount of Americans killed, like the KD ratio to like what they're doing is minuscule. I mean, like it's crazy that y'all are gonna sit here with a straight face and act like Hezbollah can suddenly take over Cuba and then launch 1,000,000 drones at America in the same style
But they
Iran did
have
to.
killed
They haven't.
American
They haven't.
soldiers
They
in the
haven't. Okay,
hundreds
they have. Sure.
before.
Have they? Has Cuba like been taken over by Iran? No. Does any country, Mexico, have the ability right now to launch the? Well, this is important because you said that we would have to have this problem where we need these THAAD missiles. You tell me when you think one of these countries is going to launch thousands of drones of short range
You
missiles
understand that
at
it's
us
not
in the
just
same way
about
Israel had it.
defending domestic America, right? Like you guys have a lot of troops all over the world, and you have
Yeah, and they
there's a
defend
little
themselves
place. I don't
easily
know if
every
you've heard
day.
of it. There's a little place called Israel that kind of has you on a leash and has you like
Oh,
a dog,
oh,
and
is
you're
that
there when
what
they
it
say
is?
like go attack this guy. You guys do it like a good obedient little dog.
The
So
Epstein leash.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting thing since we prop them up. I mean, it's crazy that they're you know what it is they're our little attack dog. We get them to go to be the dirty
Yeah,
guys that we don't have
I'm
to
gonna. I don't care about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, let
part.
me jump in.
Go ahead, Tristan, please.
I kind of co-sign what Maple was saying. Over the weekend, before the diplomatic talks actually went somewhere, there was a report that came out that Trump was kind of making sure we have the correct equipment in place so that if there is a retaliation strike, we could handle it. So there is some concern for that. But my question to Maple would be, if we could address all of your concerns, would you be okay with doing the strike?
I okay. So there's a response on my like would on some level I'd be okay with the strike in the sense of like I can stomach my emotional reaction and distaste for it on an ideological level because there can be some kind of grander strategy that in the long run maybe we're able to actually after the bombing go to the Iranians and be like, hey, like we don't want to keep doing this to you, so why don't we sit down at the table and actually like help you with your central bank, help you with the imports, help you with like your development, etc. So if in the ideal condition where issues were met on like a long-term strategy that actually helped the Iranian people, because like all things said and done, right? Like I love the Israeli people. I love the Iranian people. There are a bunch of Israeli Canadians and Iranian Canadians that are here. Fantastic people. They're all wonderful people. And I don't doubt that a majority of the people in these countries are still like wonderful people. And I don't think that we have to continue engaging in like these bombing campaigns that just kill. Like you're going to have the same effect that has happened every time America goes somewhere. You're going to win over a small population, maybe like 10% or 15%, but the overwhelming majority, like 50, 60% of that population are going to fucking hate you. And they're eventually going to get older, they're going to get in power, and your strategy is going to fall apart. So I think that's a long answer, but like, I guess.
No, it's a satisfactory answer. I guess we just disagree. I think that, so like, if we take strikes off the table, your solution is drop sanctions, improve their economy. My response would be more sanctions. So like, I just, I feel like,
Well, it's purely
I don't even know how
conditional,
to put
right?
it in words. Huh?
So I think it has to be purely conditional, right? Like there's a track, you have to go at it in a very open and honest way, which is difficult because they don't trust. You have to understand that these people don't trust America. They don't trust the West at all. So you have to go in with a lot of goodwill and like good intent and like take a little on the chin at the negotiating table. And just, yeah, I think with the right negotiating and the right strategy, and you tell them like, look, like the reality is the alternative is an actual bombing campaign and Gibbs' best fantasy of taking out the Ayatollah thing. And if you say like, if you breach any of the conditions of our negotiating table, then like that's the path that we're headed down. And I think that would work.
So here's what I'll try to meet in the middle. I don't think it will work a long time. I think they'll use that as a tactic to stall. And but even if they use it as a tactic to stall, it would delay their development of the nuclear stuff. But I just don't think it's the. I don't know. I don't think we can wait that long for it.
The thing is that
Do
we're
you think they'd
kicking
ever
bucket.
use a nuke against us?
Sorry.
So I actually wanted to have this discussion with you. I'm 50-50 on it. I don't think they would use it, or that wouldn't be the immediate concern. The immediate concern is how much it would embolden them, right? We already see what they're willing to do without a nuke. Just think about how much more they'd be willing to do with a nuke in terms of attacking Israel, attacking our ships, closing up the strait for shipping lanes, emboldening their proxy groups. I just I don't want them to have that leverage on us.
I feel like if we improve relations with the people of Iran, it probably won't get to a point where they're inflaming more tensions. Is that fair to assume?
So what is the track record for that, right? We can see that track record in other countries like Saudi Arabia. They've kind of flipped over to the economics. But with Iran, where in history did being nice to them stop them from being bad to everyone else around them? Especially if I know you didn't make this argument, but you're saying they want to be the powerhouse of that region. And it seems like they're
sorry.
Yeah, you didn't make that argument. So I don't want to push that on you, Stephanie. So but go ahead. You can say what your argument is.
I'm not saying we not saying we don't effectuate change. Like through the only strike I would want to do would not be one that's a bomb. It would be like Gibbs said earlier, like a targeted replacement of certain individuals in government.
That could be. So why? Why is that your preference?
Purely because it still allows the Iranian people to like essentially feel as if they've made a decision while we still have a little bit of a finger on the lever.
Thoughts? I guess here, while you're thinking,
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Let me. I don't want to. Let me just ask a quick question. Did you support the regime change in Venezuela before it happened?
No, before it happened, no. I didn't know exactly how they were going to do it.
Okay, so your support of it is contingent on the success rate.
And like how minimal damage is done to their society as a whole from it.
Okay. Okay. I'll leave it there. You can have it, Wick.
Yeah, I guess I understand for the people of Iran, I'm not talking about their government, the people, I can see a path to normalizing relations with the U.S. That's possible. We've done it before. We've done it in that region before. We're able to do that. But But with the Ayatollah in charge, I don't think we can. Again, it's not as if they are just neutral actors that are reacting to what we're doing. They are continuously looking to undermine other powers in the region, to attack our assets directly through their proxies, such as the Houthis, Hezbollah, and others. And they have this stated goal of doing this. So I don't know at what point we just don't believe them and say, hey, if you think we're the great Satan and want us destroyed, we're just going to take you out. You have caused too much damage in the region. You're attacking our allies. You're attacking shipping lanes. You are a threat to the stability of the region. We're just gonna remove you. I don't understand this idea, or I guess I don't understand what evidence you're bringing forward to say that normalization can work with Iran.
So I can
to echo
answer
that. To echo that real quick, I think this is also important is you have to look at like kind of what's happening worldwide, right? North Korea is probably the only one of the main group in our anti little America group that's like gained power. And that's only because they were like 0.5% potential. And now with Russia, they're out of the famine, they've got production, all this stuff. They take over some of the production from Iran. So like, yeah, somebody's gonna benefit. I guess North Korea will benefit. But with Iran, they have had economic like power for a while. They've had economic power, they've had military power in the region. This isn't like Cuba where we've just sanctioned the shit out of them and then they fucking, survive, right? This is a group of people that's had power and economics for a while. I think of simultaneously, if we remove leadership and put economic pressure on there, like, I think people will rise up. And this is kind of why it comes back. If you have the SS going door to door, suddenly you're the most pro-Nazi guy ever. Right? Same thing here. If you have the IRC or the moral police going door to door and rounding people up and oh, they took my neighbors and they took my neighbors down the street too, I'm suddenly going to be like, I love the regime. I don't think they truly have as much support as is being made out to have here. Now, I don't think they're ready to totally revolutionize either, but I definitely don't think that people are happy in Iran.
So I was going to push back on, or I guess maybe try to answer Wick's question about like him not understanding why like normalization could work. I think understanding how the Ayatollahs came to power and all the background, because prior to the coup, one of the key things that, if I remember correctly, was Iran was looking at all the foreign companies in its oil industry and kind of economy broadly speaking, and they were the democratically elected guy was like, hey, I kind of want to look a little closely at these companies, like making sure everything's okay. I'm gonna like audit some of the records. And the British and the Americans were like, whoa, bro, like we can't let that happen. Like these are British and American companies; they got to stay on top. And they went in and they they had a coup. The CIA and MI5, MI6, whatever, staged a coup. That created so much resentment in Iran because the guy that took over was the Pahlavi, the last of the Pahlavi dynasty, and he was not a popular guy. A lot of the stuff that he did was not terribly popular. And in the aftermath of Pahlavi kind of fucking up and living like a super lavish lifestyle and being kind of corrupt, not very well liked, you had this vacuum where like, oh, look, Ayatollah swept in and voila. And it's not unreasonable and not unrealistic to think like if you go to the table and be like, hey, we want you to go back to how you were before the coup. We want you to ensure that you have like democratic elections. We don't care if you're Muslim. You're gonna have different values than us, different ideas than us. That's okay. But we want you to have like a democratic election like you did previously, and we want you to flourish. We want you to be rich, like everything that you really want, and just be like a member of the global economy and point to like Saudi Arabia. And they would undoubtedly
and
go
it
along
would
with.
just work. I don't think that.
Okay,
like,
would it just
we
work?
Here in the
No,
West, we here in the West value democracy in a way that other countries simply do not. The spreading democracy project has kind of hit a wall in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not saying that we can't use diplomacy to improve things in the region, nor am I arguing or saying that a military strike is necessarily the way to go right now. What I am saying is that it's naive to think that in its current state, Iran is anything but our enemy. And they have shown us time and time again. October 7th is largely because of Iran, directly because of Iran's backing of Hamas and funding of Hamas and training of Hamas.
Oh wait, just a cosign on that. They didn't. They specifically did it at a time where Israel was partnering with all these other nations that they were formerly enemies with. So they actively invested into destabilizing the region.
Yes, and they will continue to do so. They did it with Houthis. They've done it with Jordan, right? They've done it with other countries, right? Or tried to do it with other countries. And they continuously try to do this constantly. And they're doing it today. I just don't understand how, unless we basically kick in their teeth, that they, like, we've tried giving them money. We've tried the diplomacy route several times. It just does not work.
But like I agree with all of that, Wick. I guess this is really where I'm at. And like I think people are like confused because I think people take kind of what Mr. Maple Gaze here point was earlier was where they said, hey, Trump is like, oh, I don't believe in intervention. That's not really what Trump has been saying from day one. He's been saying he's America first. He like wants to walk softly and carry a big stick, but you know how much walking softly he does. That's a good part of the debate. But like when I'm sitting here like looking at it, I would be against right now, and I'm about probably the most war hawkish person I know on almost any of your panels. I would be against sending like a lot of ground troops there. Like I might be okay with sending a surgical strike like in, style Maduro. I'd be okay with cruise missiles or, like F-35s, and we control the air and we bomb sites or something, or maybe even the big bombers, but I am not ready to send there and have Iraq 2, Iran, or whatever, Iraq 3, the electric boogaloo, bro. Like that is not what I want, right? Like that's not the kind of intervention America that Trump is. That's what Trump has said he doesn't want. And I don't want that either because there's no net gain long term. Like so I don't know. I do want to like make sure that that's kind of my line at least said like for this because I do agree with everything you've said, Wick, right there. Iran has not proven themselves.
Well,
to be
one thing you will
reasonable
disagree with
us
me
all.
on, Gibbs. Let me read the super chat first, then
Sure.
I'll get to you. $5 from Audacity. Thank you for the $5. And gang, super chat at me. Let's reach the goal today. We got a goal for $50 more in 30 minutes, so I hope we can meet it. Audacity says we're going to the Iranian people with a display of good intentions by parking our military behind the resistance we want in charge. Thank you for the $5. Gibbs, the problem I'm having is I don't think that Trump can. I have no doubt our military can go bomb shit. They're good at that. I just don't think Trump can handle what needs to be handled after we bomb the shit, right? Because it can't just be we take out the regime and then everything's good. No, there has to be a solid, concrete plan and solid, concrete diplomacy after to kind of help Iran not become super terrible and also keep them from any sort of going back to their old ways, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I just don't think my biggest concern with striking Iran is that Trump is going to be willing to do it, and that doesn't sit well with me.
Well, let's just take the worst case scenario. Say I agree with your assessment of Trump, and Trump like goes in and bombs shit out of him, and then has no plan. Let's go worst case scenario. What would that be? I don't know. Maybe the Taliban decides they're the new regional power. They take over a third of Iran. They actually annex part of Pakistan. Now they're a new power in the region. The one good thing about the Taliban is they don't believe in education. So we know they're not getting the nukes, right? Like that's going to be fine with us, okay? What's going to happen then? Saudi Arabia wants to send their proxies in and carve them up. The Houthis are weaker. Hezbollah. Like even in the worst case scenario, Wick, like as long as we're not over there like, oh, we're going to turn them into Japan 2.0 and then release them in 100 years. Like I don't, or let's just say we're even worse than that. Let's say we stay in Iraq and do what we're going to do in Iraq where we half-ass try to build a government and leave. Like even in any of these scenarios, as long as we don't do either of those two things, worst case scenario is maybe they have like a new ISIS form, but that's still much weaker than the perennial power of like Iran.
Look, you have a lack of imagination if you don't think that it could get worse. It can always get worse.
Oh, it can always get worse.
Right?
Yeah, but what is worse? Like what's worse?
We can have like
a
China
nuke
come
going
in
off
directly to take them over and simply.
Oh, that would be great.
No, It would not.
Oh yeah, it would be really good because
of the
China's going to
reasons
spread the resources thin.
Hold on. One of the reasons I am for deposing the current regime is because China has been working with them and propping them up. And if we are able to get rid of their regime and destabilize them, then it hurts China, who are our rivals. I won't say enemies yet, but they are definitely our
same thing.
rivals.
Well, okay, so why would this be any different for them than it was for us in Afghanistan or Iraq? You think the Chinese, whose only experience so far with Islam is wiping them off the map with the like Uyghur Muslims, is going to be able to sit here and negotiate that clusterfuck? Nah, let them try. Let's let them try. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow. But fuck them. Like they want to waste their money in the Middle East.
If you're
like,
wrong,
let's let them try.
then China now has a solid foot in the region, even more so
Yeah.
than they do now, and
We
it
let Saudi
becomes
Arabia
a generational problem. But
Nah.
we'll see.
I want to
ahead,
address
Bryce.
some of
Bryce.
the problems of the statements that I've heard. So one big thing is, you guys got to take responsibility. The JCPOA was for the most part working, and Trump pulled out of it it mystified everybody. Everybody in the EU was like, hey, it's working pretty well. Iran, the U.S. government itself certified it, that it was working well and doing fine. So for the most part, like Iran was willing to work on some level in some way through things like the JCPOA. So if you have like a JCPOA on steroids, in the sense of you have the like non-proliferation aspect of it, but then you also have a component of it that is about like economic help and like, I don't know, something. Start working at like having Harvard Iran and Stanford Iran spread liberalism through these like mechanisms and ways. We have literal recent evidence in the last like 10, 15 years that they will sit down at the table and actually go along with these plans and they invited IAEA people, and IAEA was like, hey, like, sure, they're making lots of enriched uranium, but like they're not doing the weapons grade. They're not defying or violating the agreement. They're playing by the rules. And the other key point, wait one second, I'm going to make one last little thing. The thing that underpins all of this is that you have some of the key actors that Israel is looking at to replace the Ayatollah regime are things like the Mujahideen of Iran, which is like a militant Marxist organization. So like, does America, just because it's not the Ayatollahs, does America really want to put a bunch of like crazy Muslim Shiite Marxists in power? And like, do you really think that having like a destabilized region is going to be better than like it's completely short-sighted and using like a very incompetent lens to look at it.
Go ahead. Well, you know what? No, I'll address it first, then I'm going to give it to Tristan, then Gibbs. I acknowledge and might even agree with you that before Trump pulled out and just ended the agreement de facto for no reason, that might be the case. But we live in a post-Trump world, or will soon, hopefully, right? And even worse if we don't, where I think that Trump has ruined the trust overseas for America for generations. It's going to be the work of generations to fix it. So even if it might have worked prior Trump turning our reputation to shit everywhere where no one can trust us, because in 4 years, even if the Democrats win in 2028, who knows that in 2032 we'll have another MAGA crazy guy get elected who will just do the same thing all over again and go back on every single one of our agreements. Yeah, I don't see anyone, let alone Iran, being willing to get in a good faith negotiation with us and sign a piece of paper saying that they're not going to do these things. No, they're not going to do that, especially in a post-Ukraine invasion world where large powers are looking to gobble up territory. Everyone is looking to get nukes now, and for, I would consider, good reason. The U.S. cannot be trusted anymore, and that shames me to say, but it's just true. So I don't see a JCPOA type agreement working in the future. But I want to give it to Tristan, and I want to give it to Gibbs. Go ahead.
So I think Maple knows this, and I want to clarify it for the audience. But the agreement that we had, it did work. It did slow down Iran getting nuclear weapons, but they did breach it. right? They did. So the agreement is so that they can make nuclear energy, which requires like less than 4% enrichment, but they found violations between 20 to 60%. And 90% is what's needed to be weapons grade. So that's currently where they sit. So I will concede and say that these agreements do work at slowing things down. I just don't think they're going to be effective for where we are right now. So I'm co-signing Wick on this one.
Responses.
So, like, I mean,
Oh,
you,
go ahead, Gibbs,
yeah,
go
I mean,
ahead.
I want to add to your thing. When you just said generations, I like really have a problem with this like idea that it's like not long term. Let's just look at maybe the two biggest events of the 20th century: World War One and World War Two. They're separated by one generation, right? Like within one generation, people that were like on the side of the Germans and the people in power in World War One were on the different sides. A lot of them in World War Two, right? And so that's 20 years separated the two, right? And it was a massive change in the alignment, and it led to like a huge world war, obviously, right? Same thing if we look at another famous place right now. We've had the Great African War. Now we have the Great African War 2 basically just ended, or is ending, or maybe it's not. Who knows? It's going on, and those groups have changed sides. A lot of those groups have switched sides again because one group that they were siding with the first time is now more powerful. They don't like it. So when you go, generations change, like I think within 20 years, 30 years, we could have drastic changes. Somebody that might have been our ally the whole time, like say, I don't know, the UK in 30 years, who knows? Maybe they're an Islamic caliphate. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could, right? And so when you go, we're going to just always be friends with these people. No, that's not how it works. And so I'm sorry when y'all go, it's a common short side. We are the superpower. There's no evidence right now that that's going to change in the foreseeable future as long as we keep intervening. And I think it might sound harsh, but what's scary, and this is what Mr. Thomas keeps bringing up, is the nuke. Right? The idea that Iran gets a nuke is terrifying. It should be terrifying because of what he said earlier. Not what they'll do with the nuke specifically, is what they'll embolden them to do. Right? And I think when we're sitting here looking at this, if we go in there, we remove that leadership in sort of surgical strikes, we keep the economic pressure up. Yeah, it's going to have factions. I don't know if it's going to fully balkanize, but I think it'll hurt them. And I think long term, that's going to help us more because what happens if, say, a religious group gets in power? That's going to hurt their education system to an extent. That's going to make it less likely they're going to have to build nukes. Say maybe China comes in there. I think China, it's more likely they're going to get into a quagmire if they go and try to prop up their backers, and it's just going to turn into a clusterfuck. They're already having problems with the Taliban. They're already having problems because they don't understand that kind of enemy. And so I just think that it's a win-win all around as long as we just don't go and send the whole fucking forts over there. Also, one last thing. I've noticed people in the chat keep bringing up the Strait of Hormuz getting shut down. What do y'all think is going to happen if they decide, okay, we're going to shut down this trade route? Yeah, maybe oil prices spike initially, but that's going to get every group in the region, all the Saudis, all of OPEC, anybody that wants oil, is going to suddenly go, these fuckers are taking away our oil. And that's just going to create a huge alliance against Iran and really maybe even help them lose Russia and China as allies at that point.
And then also imagine what that would look like if they had nukes to deter people from retaliating against them doing what they want in the region.
I think. I mean, actually, I feel like I've talked a lot. Steph, do you have any input on that particular point?
I feel like the only way to actually ensure that they don't attack us in the future is to effectuate change in their culture by just essentially getting them to want America as their own system. Not necessarily changing the religious aspect behind their culture and all that, but giving them more choice is hard to really argue against. So I couldn't see how we couldn't sell that to them.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you how, is they have strongmen, right? If you look at Saddam, I know several Iraqis now that have moved here after Saddam fell, and they all look fondly back at Saddam because they didn't care about the government. They just were economic kind of focused people. And so they were benefiting greatly. Saddam was pretty secular when it comes to religious. And so it's if you have somebody that's going to embrace the economic side, you can get a lot further with being a religious crazy or even being a secular dictator if you're just letting people do what they want economically. So say we go in there and economically give them the money. As long as the Iranian leadership's hey, we'll take the money from the great Satan and make our people's lives, better. Our economy's going. Those people are going to let them keep doing what they want. So I think you have to hit them with both. Otherwise, they're just going to stay in power. I'm sorry, I cut you off, Mr. Thomas.
That's okay. Stephanie, I agree with you. I agree with you that that's probably the best way to do something. I guess we just disagree on the timeline to have that effectually happen. But I do think that that's the proper way to think. I think infiltrating culture, for lack of a nicer sounding term, is a great way to do it, and we have precedent for it. We're seeing all these other nations around Iran who were traditionally our enemies that have become more of our allies now. So I don't want to discard your point and say, "Oh, that's stupid. That'll never work." I just don't think it'll work fast enough. But I think it's something we should always be pursuing, and cutting USAID is not helping with that. So, you know, I do agree with you.
At the moment, they're still using AI to like dick wave, so we're not really too scared of Iran, I would assume, right?
Well, so you don't have to be scared of an entity for the entity to be a problem, is what I would say. It's
Of
like,
course, of course.
yeah, so like I don't want to fall into the trap of going too far right or too far left in terms of what could happen. There's some middle ground that affects us today. Like them closing off the strait affects us like today.
You had your hand up, Gibbs. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If I ever do see me doing that, I'm trying to get the camera to work.
fair
But
enough.
yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I just like to echo that. I like arguably, under Saddam, they had more economic freedom than they do now under a democracy in Iraq. I mean, I've seen that argued. They think they have more restrictions on some things that because they have ecological restrictions. Saddam didn't give a shit about what happened to the trees in Burma, or whatever. And so, like, I just don't know. The Mideast, as somebody said this earlier, they don't care about the democracy aspect as much. The Mideast seems to like strong men of one kind or another, even within a democratic system. They'll have like, yeah, it's a democracy, but they'll have a strong man. And then we see the countries that don't have that, and they're a mess. Like Lebanon recently, I think it was a couple of years ago, went 2 years without trash pickup because they couldn't agree on a, like coalition government. I mean, and guess what? We don't have to worry about Lebanon had Hezbollah. They're bad. But Hezbollah doesn't have the ability to make a nuke, right? I think Iran, with the current leadership, does, and I think that's like a big factor here. Also, like, what's to stop them from giving the nuke away? Like, we already know they're willing to share their good tech with people like Hezbollah. What's to stop them from being like, well, we didn't technically do this, and then like, letting something go? Like, they're very well within the realm of possibility for me with the current leadership.
I think something that cannot be stressed enough is that this is a country that had a healthy democracy before the US and the Brits stepped in and was a pretty progressive country. We hear it all the time. You see the pictures and the proof of it all the time. I don't think that it's unrealistic to think that you have a game plan. And look, if you're really genuinely afraid and worried about the nuke development program, then again, you as part of a way to heal the I guess wounds from the JCPOA, because as much as there might have been some breaches in the JCPOA, nothing merit was egregious enough until after Trump pulled out of it for all the leaders to be like, hey, like, because there was a public statement, I believe, in like late 2017 or 2018, where like everybody in the West except for Trump was like, hey, this is working well. We want it to continue. They're playing by the rules. Everything is going according to plan, and like people aren't dying. Like it was an optimal route that didn't require putting American lives at risk, using up American resources, and didn't mean like innocent Iranians die. Because you look at, you brought up the Strait of Hormuz. The real situation is that the American Navy is essentially at a stalemate with the Houthis there. They've killed hundreds of fighters and they haven't broken them. They've killed a lot more civilians, and they've just kind of created more resentment towards America towards it, and they're not really any better off for it. You're probably gonna have lots of PR that tries to spin it as being like, yeah, like American victory, we broke the Houthis, but like there was a recent thing that came out that talked about how American Houthi missile capabilities is advancing and evolving. So clearly they're not actually stopping the Houthis and preventing it. And if the Houthis are just this small ragtag army of a bunch of like what's the right word? Lower socioeconomic standing, like rebels, then like what happens when it expands further? And what if America? Not everybody is pro-America.
Well, the problem with your argument here, Bryce, is that you're correct. Striking the Houthis won't ever destroy the Houthis, not really, because the Houthis are simply one of the octopus tentacles of Iran. So we could destroy their whole leadership, and Iran would just import more. So if you want to stop the Houthis, you have to strike Iran. And
So one crazy idea. Sorry to cut you off, if
No,
that's
it's fine.
okay. So a key thing with this idea that I have
before
of
you go,
yeah.
do you acknowledge that state of affairs? That's a
Yes,
true
I
state?
have a specific game plan for that exact
ahead.
property. So the U.S. How do I say it with the least amount of jargon? Sorry, with the least amount of jargon. Essentially, like everybody knows, like Iran's strength is in that they don't want to be at peace, but they don't want to be at war. So they have all this shit that they do with their proxies. And if you explicitly address that when you're talking about the JCPOA and the economic deals, you can have them be like, look, why don't you spend all that money that you're spending on your proxies and this regional stuff on your own domestic economy? And we're going to also do this in tandem with you. You're going to be brought into the fold. And it kind of worked with like Russia in the past. And it probably would have worked if Trump didn't just randomly pull out of the JCPOA.
Well, I think Russia's a primary example of how this does not work. Russia says all the time and makes all the promises in the world, but then breaks them all. I don't trust Iran to keep a single one of these promises of like, if you expect them to give up their leverage that they have now, and the leverage that they have now is their control over these proxy groups, right? I don't think that that's a feasible way. And I would point to Russia. Again, we've tried to reset Russian relations several times in the last 25 years, and it's never worked. And Russia continuously boundary presses, continuously fucks with us, continuously pokes a finger in our eye. And lately, right, the latest little thing that they've done is simply go into Ukraine and invade there. I don't see how Iran keeps its promises. I just don't think that we live in that world. $5 from Audacity, and then I'll let you respond, and then I want to get everyone's. We're wrapping up soon. $5 from Audacity to say Hoots are just Sandy Antifia. Thank you for that. And Coffee Margin says Wick Russia's on the board of peace though. Yeah, but that's because we have Trump in the fucking White House, and that's another debate on Trump and Russia relations, okay? But America and Russia relations are a different thing, okay?
So before you respond, Mape, I'm going to jump on something Wick said.
Go for it.
The major difference between how America responds to Iran versus how America responds to Russia, in my opinion, is because one of those countries has nuclear capabilities and the other doesn't. I think that if Russia didn't have nuclear capabilities, we would be taking a much more aggressive backing of Ukraine.
I think it's interesting that there's this grand fear of them with like a nuclear weapon, and we obviously want to pursue non-proliferation across the board. I would like to see everybody just get rid of nuclear weapons. In an ideal world, they're just gone. We don't really need like those crazy weapons of mass destruction.
Hold on that point. I'm not really pushing back here, but this is something I was thinking about. I feel like there were a lot more deadly wars pre-nuclear weapons. I haven't looked it up to confirm that, but I feel like nuclear weapons has created a
deterrent
kind of peace that
that's true. I can back you up on the stats here. Wars since the 60s, in the 50s, basically, have been far less deadly than wars prior to that. But that may not be.
Could be technology.
That's not true. That's not true, Wick. That's not true, Wick. Because this is actually, I'm going to call it, you leftist liberals are all racist because y'all are not worrying about the Great African War and the Great African War II that has killed as many people as World War II almost in both of those. So
do you know the concept of per capita?
Wick, do you know the concept of per capita? Sure, there's more people alive today, but whenever you're saying
so when we talk about per capita, how deadly they are. Right, when you and these are horrific numbers, right? But when you lose 20% of a population instead of 50% of a population, and those are just example numbers, right? The 20% of the population, even if the population is generally higher, is still
So
is still
It's still
better.
a nothing burger. It's still a nothing burger because like the sad state of the fact or state of the world is that people don't care about Africa, right? Like for better or worse, for whatever you say, like people turn a blind eye. They don't read about it. They don't learn about it. We're not really involved. We don't
Well,
really
and if
peacekeep
you
the
think
same
that
way we do
what
after
we were
Rwanda.
doing to Africa before, the World Wars, was any less catastrophic for them, I don't know what to tell
yeah,
you.
but that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the point here is that if we're talking about non-nuclear powers committing genocide and we're talking about per capita, I would argue that these are killing more people per capita if we're looking at the African nations because they're not as populous as some of these countries, like say, I don't know, China or India or Pakistan. And these are
It has
9
nothing to do with
smaller
nuclear
countries, and they've killed over 5.4 million people in the first Great African War. I don't even have the stats up for the second one yet. And if we're looking at that's more in some areas than what we're talking about in
If
World War
anything,
One,
you're
World War II.
proving no. The funny thing is that you're unintentionally proving the point that nuclear weapons can be good in the overall reduction of death from war because you play a thought experiment of what if South Africa or like Congo and Sudan had nuclear weapons, right? Like
Yeah,
in
but
this
part of the reason
hypothetical
is
thought
part of the reason
experiment.
these wars are
Hang
being
on, hang on.
fought
In this
is because they
hypothetical,
want the
like
resources
in this
with
Let
uranium is
hypothetical,
one of them.
Bryce finish, and then we're gonna
in this
wrap up.
hypothetical,
But yeah,
we can use the empirical evidence from the wars in like by Russia and other nuclear wielding countries that there's going to be a reduction in the overall death. So if there is like millions and millions of people dying, not if like since there are millions of people dying in these African countries, maybe should we be developing nuclear weapons for them so they stop killing each other so much? Like it's unintentionally you inadvertently
okay.
No, but
made a
they're
good
only
point.
having
Okay,
these wars
before
for the
we,
rare earth minerals. Like that's
we're
a part of
getting
it,
we're
and part
getting
of
a
it
little off
goes
topic.
to the nukes.
I wanna we do have a limited time span, gang, and I want to talk to my chat a little after this. So I'm gonna get you guys to give your closing statements now. So first of all, thank you all of you for coming here and giving your time to my show. I have links to all their stuff, to their YouTube channels if they have one, if they provided me one, in my YouTube description. You can check them out, gang, and I hope you all do. But I want to give everyone a chance to have some closing thoughts on this, and we'll just start with Stephanie again, and we'll just go around and let Tristan have the last word. Stephanie, go ahead.
Yeah, again, to close it all out, I just think like the smartest idea to effectuate regime change long term is to improve diplomatic relations with the people of Iran instead of bombing. Bombing is just never like optically, it's so bad and it's just not very good. But
Okay, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Bryce, please.
thanks for having me.
Sure. So U.S. powers weakened after the erosion of all their soft power and the rules-based international order. It's very likely to replicate the Iraq situation where they're going to destroy leadership, but also the institutions, which is going to be horrible for the civilians there. It's more likely that it's a noble lie in a Straussian sense that they might not actually achieve all the ends that they want, and in fact, things are going to get worse. They should actually practice a sense of like defensive realism and avoid unnecessary wars, and maybe even take a little more of like a liberal point of view and not fall into a long campaign trap.
Okay, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Gibbs.
Yeah, I mean, nukes have changed the game. It makes everybody dangerous if you have them. It makes people not want to be aggressive because you might get nuked. I mean, I guess that's kind of what the argument they're making. I'd argue that just because that may be true, there people are sitting there mining resources and starting a whole wars that are the same size as World War II over the resources to build better tech and better nukes. Yeah, I'm sitting here going, yeah, it's bad. It's all bad. But sometimes destabilization is a good thing if you're the great power. And I think this is one of those cases. Iran has been proven to be a bad actor repeatedly. Wick mentioned that he's talking about the different tentacle arms, the Houthis being one of them. You know, yeah, the Houthis, it's not a stalemate. they haven't been able to do shit since we put our ships out there, and we just basically own the strait. Same thing. Anytime we actually put our dick down, it's always the biggest. I think it's time to do it again to the Ayatollah and call him Ayah bye bye, because that's what needs to happen. And that's all I would say for my chat. Two things. We'll be doing another debate right after this. And guys, if you're playing Helldivers, I need y'all to go vote to raise Merrick. I don't need any more of these bad strategies. So focus up on that, boys. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least, Tristan.
I have a quote from President Kennedy from when he was dealing with the Cuban Missile Crisis. He said, "Diplomacy and defense are not substitutes for one another. Individually, they fail without the other to back it up." And I think that's a really good quote for what's happening right here. I don't think that any sanction or any agreement that we have will work if we don't have the military might and force and show of force to get those executed. So I really enjoyed debating with you guys. I've learned that we agree on a lot of things. We just disagree on the timing and the execution of it. So I had fun.
Well, thank you all for being here. Gang, if you enjoyed this content, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. We're not lending just yet, but we're going to let these gentlemen and ladies go bye-bye. Yeah, so tomorrow at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be debating on Tomfoolery's show. I'm going to be debating ICE with an ex-ICE agent. So that should be fun. And then on Friday, we're going to have a debate on should America be a Christian nation, and we have some great guests for that, and tune in for that. But thank you for being here, and we're gonna let you guys go. So bye. Okay, now that they're gone. No, gang, I just wanted to give some updates on the channel and what we're doing and where things are going. So first of all, thank you all for coming and joining in. I know it was not super spicy today, but I think it was a good discussion overall, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So first thing, we have on YouTube broken 10,000 subscribers. Yay! 5 digits, gang. It's been a long time coming, but we finally did it. So we are shooting for the moon, and hopefully we can get to 100K in a much shorter period of time, but we'll see, right? And I got some plans for doing that. On February the 28th in Washington, D.C., there's going to be a March for Democracy, and I have gathered pieces together to put together a live stream, an IRL stream. I told you guys that I was going to go to CPAC next week. We had the dates wrong. It's not next week, so we won't be doing that. We'll be having our regular schedule. But the week after, we are going to Washington, D.C., and we will be live streaming, and we will be talking to the people on the ground at the March for Democracy. We're going to be talking to the counter-protesters. We're going to be talking to everyone we can find, and just kind of getting a feel on the streets for how things are going. And that should be fun. It's my first IRL content kind of thing where I'm actually kind of man on the street talking to people and things like that. So that should be interesting. I hope you guys tune into that. And yeah, if you've enjoyed my content and you want to help me continue to do good content, throw me some bits, throw me some gift subs, throw me some subscribers on YouTube or on Twitch. Hit that follow button. If you want to ask questions or just want to donate, throw some super chats my way. All those help. All those are good, and I like all of them. So thank you all for being here. Are there any questions on what's coming up? Any suggestions that you'd like to see me talk about? Thank you, Audacity, for that wonderful, wonderful rendition. Shid and Fard. Appreciate it. And Okala, nice to see you. No bands with Universal Discourse. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Factually Active. Hello, Connect Pause. Hello, Coffee Margin. Nice to see you. Alter Miria. Nice to see you as well. DT Keys. All of you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm sure I missed a bunch of you, but okay. That's pretty much all we had for today. Once again, see you tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Might go live a little early, right, to talk about the Super Bowl, if you guys care. But yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, Girl Scouts. Bye-bye.